Great leadership is great storytelling. If you have a great and inspiring story, it implodes the people's minds and they can't stop thinking about it.
Management is telling people what to do. Leadership is getting people to want to follow you.
It has always got to be the promise of the future that's bigger, better, bolder.
In this episode, we break down how leaders get people to believe in their vision and why the best leaders don't sell products, strategies, or tasks. They sell the future. And there's no one better to unpack this with than Victor Hansen. He's the co-creator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, which sold over 500 million books. He also had 59 New York Times bestsellers, and on top of that, is very successful in business. My name is Oliver Aust. I've helped over 300 CEOs become master communicators, and this is Speak Like a CEO, the show that helps you become a top 1% communicator. Last time we spoke, you talked to me about leadership and storytelling. How are these connected?
Great leadership is great storytelling. If you have a great and inspiring story, it implodes the people's minds and they can't stop thinking about it, and it takes ownership, and your decision makes your provision. So if you make a decision in favor of a great and inspiring story, like we had a few presidents, like I'll use an old one so no one can object, Abe Lincoln, Honest Abe, they called him in our country, and just the most believable guy ever. And one of his best friends was one of my favorite writers, Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, and both guys were storytellers, and they could convince armies to move, politicians to come in. I'll just do how good a story that Abe did. Abe did this story so well, he got all the enemies that hated him working for him. Right. And it just, so is a story important in great and inspiring leadership? 100%, because leadership is storytelling.
And this is something I talk about a lot, actually. And I think there's a bit of a crisis of leadership communications in the last few decades, coming out of the industrial age, where leadership was seen as something, mechanical, something logical. And maybe that storytelling skill is now coming back. We see it more and more, not just among communicators, but also among leadership. And I think there's a new generation of leaders who fully embrace storytelling. And you're obviously one of the greatest storytellers on the planet. You sold over 500 million books. You were on the New York Times bestseller list 59 times.
Yes, sir.
You hold the Guinness Book records for most New York Times bestseller at any one time, which still stands as far as I know. So absolutely impressive. Yet I also heard that Chicken Soup for the Soul was rejected by 144 publishers initially. Is that true?
Yes, it's absolutely true. And by the way, the joke I tell is that they didn't like Jack, but that's not true. Jack is a totally lovable guy.
Your co-author.
My partner, Dr. Jack Canfield, who third in his class at Harvard. And if I was third in my class anywhere, I would be on my chest and saying how smart I am. Right? Jack is very humble.
But you persisted, right? I think most people would have said,
what we say about leadership is that 1 and 1 equals the power of 11. You create a third new invincible mind. And that's what we did, because life is about vibration. Every thought is a vibration. A thought is the cliche in Think and Grow Rich is, of course, thoughts are things, and they are, but they're vibrations that go out, and you're either in a high vibration, which gets results of a leader, or you're in a low vibration. And it's easier to take leadership negative, is that they tell negative stories, you're going to go to hell and blah, 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 blah. And the people, it's easier to convince negative than positive, because 90% of media is negative, not positive. So most people implode the negative. That's why I say, and obviously I've written all these positive books and positive stories, is that you need to imbibe or drink in one of my positive stories or somebody's each and every day to start your day, to buoy yourself up. Otherwise, you're going to get sucked down, because you don't know any better. You assume the world's wrong, and the world's right. The world's working. The sun comes up every day in the east. If you don't like it, Jim Rohn, my buddy, used to say, and when you get to heaven, if you get there, you argue against it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's this inherent negativity bias that we have. And the problem, I think, from a business and leadership perspective is that, yes, you get attention for something negative, but you don't really move people to action. To move people to action, you need something positive, a vision, a goal. And that's what the great entrepreneurs do, right? They have a positive vision of the future.
It has always got to be the promise of the future that's bigger, better, bolder, more wise. And if you take the richest man in the world, who I'm a great scholar, student of, and that's Elon Musk. And Elon Musk, what is he saying? He's saying, hey, look, I'm going to make $8 trillion for Tesla. I'll get paid $1 trillion, the highest pay ever, right? Which is waking up everybody else to say, hey, wait a second. If money is only made in leadership and a business and innovation and marketing, and this guy's doing both with one statement, I'm going to take that trillion. I'm going to the moon where there's no gravity. There's plenty of sunshine. We can build the data centers and we can lift off there gravity free to go to Mars in less than 70 days. And we'll have 1 million people in Mars. And during this time, I'm hiring 2 million people. Everyone says AI is going to take all the jobs. No, he can't get enough people. He's going abroad to places like Philippines to get employees because he has sucked out all the talent out of Texas and America. Not enough people are coming. He needs 2 million people to get us to Mars. What is that? That I just told you a story. It's a leader that's a leader's leader. This guy is beyond my heroes, Andrew Carnegie, and all the people that were successful before are this big compared to where he's going. He's creating the first $1 trillion company by himself. He's not, like you say, Apple's a $3 trillion company, and that's true. But Steve Jobs started it, and Tim did a better job. But now we're going into a new kind of leadership where one guy was bankrupt only 5 years ago, and now he's turned it around because thinking makes it so. His vibration is so high.
I'm curious, because most leaders will probably think, okay, that's Elon Musk, or that, you write books. We have, just a normal business here, or I'm leading a team to doing certain things. What can you tell them so that they maybe get over the hump and move from fact-telling to storytelling?
Well, yes, two approaches. First of all, we taught, our current best-selling book is Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Destiny, done by my beautiful wife, Crystal, who I call the goddess of exquisiteness. And it starts with a fable. Nobody ever started a book with a fable before. That's a nonfiction book as far as I know, because I only do books that are original, transformative, and inevitable, that they're going to have pass-along value, and this is just rocking. So, but what we teach in that book is, before you go to sleep at night, you program your mind to what you want, because the subconscious never sleeps. What you impress, you express. So you implode 101 times whatever it is you want. In my case, I want to sell 1 million books. When Jack and I started Chicken Soup, we said 1.5 million in a year and a half, 1.5 million in a year and a half, 1.5 million in a year and a half. And your subconscious figures it out. Your subconscious is teleological. So a guy with a small business says, I want to, by the way, it's no harder to ask yourself to 1-fold or 2-fold than to 10-fold. As a matter of fact, at 10-fold, what you're really doing, point number 2, is you're changing your perception. It's easier to have a bigger business than it is a smaller business. We did a company, on this book, and 1 Minute Millionaire, which Random House gave us $1 million before we wrote, and we sold 3.7 million to start, and it has a universal symbol of the butterfly. And we said, we're going to build the biggest business ever. And myself and Tony Robbins had the 2 biggest companies. I was doing 100 million. I'm the chairman. And we did 2 books in one, which nobody had ever done. Right Brain, and the butterfly flies off by the time you know how to do it. At the end, that Bob Allen and I did, we make you make $1 million in 90 days. And we had 4,000 people coming a weekend, 40 weekends a year, did 100 million, while we wanted to do that. And then took people on trips, did all kinds of, we had the promise of the future. We had all the stories, and we changed the perception, because most people in the audience were making $500,000 to $1 million. And we said, look, let us take you to 10 million. It was such a big promise, but we had the people in the audience talk to the people in the audience. If you're $500,000 and I'm $500,000, and I say, here's the holes in your business. Here's where you're doing well, Oliver, but here's some places I think you ought to look. Not only do I see the holes in your business, I see the holes in mine, and you do the holes in mine, but you have 100 people do that to you. Suddenly you go, wow, and I'm going to write down all the notes on how to take my business to 10 million, and the people did.
Let's inverse the question then. What's the wrong way of asking? Because we're all asking questions all the time, right? And what I find interesting is such a human quality. Only humans ask questions. You can teach a chimp, 100 sign language, and they can, say they're hungry, etc. But they can never ask a question. At least, to my knowledge, no chimp has ever asked a question, even if they knew sign language. So it seems to be a very human trait. But what's the wrong way of asking a question?
Oh my God, what if I go bankrupt? What if the bank comes after me? What if this business falls through? What if my wife's right and I'm wrong? What if my partner is correct? What if my partner steals the whole business from me? I mean, I can give you 100 negative, and it's easier for people to ask negatives. And like, we just did this great book with John Paul DeJoria. We wrote his biography. But the minute we wrote the book, we were done. His lawyers, 9 lawyers, because he owns 42 companies, looked at it and they started tearing it apart. And I went, oh my God, we wrote the book. I can't, you're ripping this to shreds. These stories are great, Bill. We could get sued by him, or we could get sued by her. Yeah. You guys are missing the point. So the title of JP's book is Success Without Sharing His Failure. And he's down in the Caribbean on a yacht and sees this island called Barbuda next to Antigua. The hurricane had just smashed it. There's no work, there's no employment, there's nothing going on in the island. So he buys the island, basically. A little overstated, but now remember, he's not a fish doctor, but he hires the top fish doctor called an ichthyologist. How do we make every island hurricane-proof? He made it hurricane-proof, brought back the turtles, brought back the fish, brought back 100% employment. I can go on and on for 12 or 20 points. The point is, he's out of the box as a thinker because he's not stuck in, we've always had hurricanes here in the 28 islands of the Caribbean. We're always going to have hurricanes in the Caribbean. He didn't buy into what wasn't. He bought into what could be rather than what was.
Yes. And that seems to be the secret to asking, right? You ask for the things you want and wish for yourself and other people, and you avoid asking or reinforcing the negative beliefs of what could go wrong. Is that a fair summary?
Close. I'm going to add one thing. Neville taught me, the guy who wrote the book Resurrection and did a lot of talks on YouTube, and I love Neville. Neville said, you live in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, which is exactly what Jesus Christ said. And Jesus said, pray as though the thing for which you're praying has been received. Now that sounds like nutso language. What do you mean it's been received? I want a brand new car and I haven't got a new car on my driveway. I got that old junk heap, right? Not me, but that's where most people are, right? Because they live where they are, not where they're going to be. You got to come from the end result, and you got to live there before you get there to get back to what we said, the vibration. Because life only has three forms, according to Einstein, who is my teacher. My teacher is Dr. Buckminster Fuller, but Albert and he were partners and all that. But energy, vibration, and frequency. Frequency is how many heartbeats you have a minute, 72. But energy, you have energy based on thinking, which is based on vibration, because I said every thought is a vibration. So if you raise your vibration, good stuff comes to you. Your I am is always going in front of you. So if you say, I'm broke, right? Wrong question, wrong result. If you say, I'm rich, and you start to believe it, you send out a vibration of riches, right? When I said I was going to sell more books than anybody's ever sold, we got turned down 144 times. People go, I don't know who this farm boy is from Illinois, but he isn't that smart. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Nobody's going to sell 500 million books. Well, no, I didn't say I was going to sell 500 million. I said I'm going to sell 1 billion. I'm halfway to my goal.
Buckminster Fuller was your teacher. You worked for him, right? A mentor. And he was Einstein's pupil. So that's just crazy in itself. And I always wonder what Buckminster Fuller was like, because his books are just, mind-blowing. But, can you, in a couple of sentences, what was he like?
Well, first of all, he's a great inventor. He was a great futurist. He invented geodesic dome spherical buildings made out of triangles, sort of like an egg. He built floating cities. Bucky Fuller wrote what E equals MC means to the public, and he was writing for Fortune magazine after he got out of Harvard, and he sent it to, and he wanted to do a whole big book, which came out called Four-Dimensional Time Lock, and the people in New York said, look, kid, you're 22 years old and you're writing this stuff and you sound smart. And yes, you went to Harvard, but there's only 11 people in the world that understand E equals MC squared, and name's not on that list. Matter of fact, Bucky Fuller, your name's not on the list. He said, there's only one guy that will know. So he sends it over to Princeton University, where Albert was teaching at the time. And 3 days later, he gets a call from Albert, and it says, I love the German accent. He says, young man, you absolutely amaze me. You come over here and be with me here at Princeton. And Buck immediately had a flat tire. All the stuff that could go wrong went wrong, but they became best friends. So the movie that you saw that sort of harkens to this is called A Beautiful Mind. I'm sure you saw it with Russell Crowe. And those of you who haven't seen it, you want to go back on streaming services, watch it. But it turns out that Bucky and Albert are testing 2,000 kids in this one class. And they had... Einstein had written, here's the 10 questions of universe, and the 10th question is unanswerable, Albert said. Now, there's a kid out of 2000 that's up in the balcony that's still writing the answer, which later on you saw on glass, right? He wrote all the answer on glass in A Beautiful Mind. Bucky and Albert go up to him and say, young man, we said pencils up. what are you doing? He says, I've almost got the answer. I get goosebumps. It's so good. It's a great story. He says, young man, you got to quit. And he said, no, I've got the answer here. Just let me do. And it was the answer to number 10. Albert and Bucky look at it and go, were you here at the beginning? He said, no, I, like Dr. Fuller, had a flat tire on the way here. I was 15 minutes late, and I finally got the answer. Albert said, I'm glad I didn't pollute you because I said that's an unanswerable question, so nobody else answered it probably, and you got the answer. That's what a beautiful mind is, not cluttered by the facts, but have the story. And to get the story right is I'm going to figure out how to answer this.
90% of presentations are forgotten within a day, and even the best ideas get ignored. Over the last 20 years, I've helped hundreds of leaders prepare for stages like TED and South by Southwest, and the difference is always the same. Top 1% communicators, they use a system, and this system is called the Perfect Presentation Planner. Download it now, it's free, link in the description. Is there an analogy to leadership today? Just cluttered, people are cluttered by facts and they don't really see the story they should be telling as leaders?
100% yes. When you read the Bible, and I did Chicken Soup for the Soul Bible, it looks like this. It's a great book. We sold 70,000 a week at Walmart, and I tried to make it palatable to everybody, right? Purple cover, all that good stuff. And we loved it. But the big word is called an exegesis. You know, there's the book, then there's the words in the book, then there's a story in the book, but then there's the meaning, the exegesis where you can use it. Eyal, who we've talked about, does an exegesis of the whole globe, exegesis of the whole universe, and says, look, the universities, we're here to be an interspecies humanity. And I go, wow. Well, I'm on the board of Back to Space and all kinds of cool stuff. Literally, everybody else was mumbling along, and NASA was mumbling along because they believed you couldn't go back into all of space. And we spent $2 billion a year on wasting the money. One guy with self-initiative to action, which is real leadership. Real leadership is defined as storytelling plus self-initiative to action. He said, I'm going to use my money, my time, my energy, and I'm going to figure it out. And he did. And he ended up getting hired by NASA to get the space guys we had locked in space. And they did it in 2 weeks because you got to exegesis world and you got to think bigger. When you go to sleep at night and you meditate and go in that quiet place, you say, if I knew what my right livelihood and destiny was at the highest and best, what would it be? If I knew what my right livelihood at my highest and best would be, what would it be? How can I take myself to an exalted state of CEO, in Bucky's line, to make everyone better off and no one worse off, so we get 100% of humanity physically and economically successful for the first time in history? Does that all make sense?
It does make sense. It does make sense. And you're obviously a great storyteller. You're also a great storyteller on stage. You've spoken to millions of people all over the world. And I wanted to ask you, how do you approach public speaking? Do you have a specific, technique? How do you ensure that you connect with the audience?
Wow. Well, first of all, you start with your own desire. My desire is to talk to people that care about things that matter, that make a life-changing difference. And then number two is, I interview the client in depth. So I know more about the client than they do themselves. And number two is that I ask what their biggest problems are and if I can solve them for them, and so I'm talking to the president, the chairman of the board, the CEO, the chief marketing officer, and whoever their top salesperson is. And then I do my own exegesis on it. I say, well, wait a second. If we fast forward this and forward think 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, what could this company do? What could this group do that they're not doing right now, that they've got all the capability, they got more talent than they're using, because all of us are born over-endowed with 18 billion brain cells, but you got to make a very big decision, then the subconscious comes out and blooms and makes provisions.
So every talk is really tailored, right? That's what I'm hearing, that you really do your research, you talk to everyone there in charge and make sure that your talk isn't just nice and then maybe forgotten tomorrow, but it really resonates, changes, because you give people a new perspective.
Right.
You show them a horizon they haven't seen before.
Right.
What are you working on right now? What gets you excited in terms of all the projects you have in front of you?
It turns out that we're doing 4 books right now in biography land of the biggest guys in the planet, and every one of them are rich. So what all of them want is the same thing. They want to live long and prosper, nano, which is a biblical promise, a spiritual promise, a life promise. I mean, if you've done really well and you really love doing what you do, and my belief is you should never retire from something to nothing. So all these guys are doing longevity stuff. Like, I'll just do one of the machines that a guy invented that he made a company that he made $750 million, and now he's figured out a machine that slices and dices a body by going over it. I just had a terrible car accident a few days ago, and I had to go through a CAT scan, and I'm allergic to them because I'm claustrophobic to the max. So I had to find a place that does what's called open MRI. This is even better than open MRI because it does it not in 20 minutes to see if I've got a concussion, but in 30 seconds, and it's 1/5 the energy. And it's just because this guy wasn't in the field and said, look, this is dumb. I'm claustrophobic too, and I can't do that stupid stuff. So I'm going to make new machines. So I'm saying there's technology now that it reads out 64,000 different reads on you or me, in my case, me. And I own part of that company, and it's so exciting because the world is changing fast, but everybody's got to pay attention and hang out with people that are the doers. What I'm saying is take off your biases, open up your eyes. Opportunity is infinite, but it's not limited in just to America. The whole world is working. Like already this morning, I've been on the phone with Portugal. I've been on the phone in Vietnam. It's a very exciting time because with these Zoom calls, we can do business with everybody everywhere all at once. And on some of them, we have 10 or 12 superstar players. And every one of them is expanding. I mean, these guys aren't contracting. We're going into the most booming, exciting, exquisitely relevant times in human history.
Absolutely. So this is always my final question. What's your best piece of communications advice?
Decide in favor of yourself that you're going to become a master at communication. We're now part of a university that is springing up called University of Silicon Valley, and it's probably the fastest growing. 500 people regularly a month are joining in, and they said, look, we want to, in addition to teaching gaming and systems theory, all the stuff we know, would you teach these 4 things? And we're going to teach, first of all, how to speak, which is what you and I have been talking about, because every CEO, if you got to speak, right, and communicate effectively with stories. Number 2, how to think. Number 3, how to write. And then number 4, how to have human relations. How do we get along with each other? And right now, people are so biased that I can't talk to him or her because of blank. Well, blank could be anything. It could be political. It could be spiritual. It could be religious. It could be whatever, right? It could be color. It could, nonsense. We all want to be healthy. We all want to be happy. We all want to, at the right levels, you want to prosper, right? Some people are taught the anti-prosperity with socialism, fascism, and communism, which is dumbass squared as far as I'm concerned, because nothing times nothing equals nothing. You got to have a masterpiece. You got to have a master to have masterpiece.
That's right. That's fantastic. I couldn't agree more, obviously, with your focus on mastering communications. I mean, I devoted my professional life to it, and I appreciate that you're also helping the next generation of leaders acquire these skills, which is also part of my mission.
The youth is the hope of the world, and we got 6 grandkids that we love, respect, adore, that, thank God, knock on wood, they're all gifted and good athletes also. So, but I want that true for every kid, not just my kid, but half the billion population is under 20 years old. They all deserve a shot at the golden or brass ring, whatever ring they want, right? But I'd prefer it to be gold, or platinum. Let's go to the top. We need everyone to operate at their highest and best because, like I said, it's easier to tenfold a business than twofold. But if you start asking yourself how to tenfold, your subconscious comes to work. At twofold, I got to work twice as hard. And pretty soon you remonstrate. Inside you say, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm not doing this, it's buzz off. Whereas if we really go to a new paradigm of how do we have breakthrough thinkers to do breakthrough results, we are in this dynamic time that's going to just keep getting better.
Appreciate you very much. Thank you for taking the time. This has been amazing. It's been amazing. It's just your view on things is very different, very original, and I love how excited you are about the future. And someone in your position who's done extremely well for himself could just lean back and enjoy the sunshine. But you do so many things and pass on so much knowledge to the next generation that I just want to say thank you, and that's really appreciated.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you like this episode, please subscribe to the Speak Like a CEO channel. It means the world to me, and it helps us keep bringing you world-class insights and guests.